Good evening. Welcome to Kenya News Update today. I'm your host. Tonight, we have a story that sounds like something from a dystopian novel, but it's very real and unfolding right here in our football leagues. Two Kenyan footballers have been handed a staggering 365-year suspension each. That's right, 365 years. This unprecedented punishment for double registration has sent shockwaves through the sports community and raises profound questions about identity, governance, and the very soul of our national pastime. But is this a case of necessary, harsh justice, or a symptom of a deeper systemic failure? We'll dive deep into the case, explore the context of identity in our multi-ethnic state of over 47.5 million people, and connect it to other stories of exploitation and questionable justice in our region. This is a 12-minute deep dive. Let's start with the facts of the case. The Football Kenya Federation's disciplinary committee has suspended two players for 365 years each. The players, Bernard O.L. and his alleged alias, Myra O.L., were found guilty of double registration. The investigation centered on three clubs: Santos Hotspurs, Nairobi FC, and Kirinyaga Stars. It was established that Bernard O.L., who featured for Santos Hotspurs, was simultaneously registered as Myra O.L. at Nairobi FC. The mechanics are still being unpacked, but it involves using different national identification numbers, dates of birth, and potentially forged documents. The committee's ruling was unequivocal: a lifetime ban, quantified in centuries. For context, the last national census in 2019 put our population at 47,558,296. A suspension lasting 365 years spans generations. It's a punishment that will outlive not just the players' careers, but their children and their children's children. To understand the weight of this, we need to look at what's at stake. Football in Kenya isn't just a game, it's a potential lifeline. A successful career can mean escaping poverty, supporting an extended family, and achieving national fame. The financial incentives, even in our local leagues, can be significant. Registration with a club comes with a salary, bonuses, and exposure. Double registration, therefore, is essentially drawing two salaries for one person's labor. It's fraud. The clubs involved lose a player slot and pay a ghost employee. It corrupts the competition's integrity. But the question many are asking is, does the punishment fit the crime? 365 years versus, say, a permanent ban from the sport? The quantification feels almost theatrical. Is it meant to be a deterrent so severe it becomes a headline? Let's bring in our first perspective. Sports lawyer Ann Mwangi joins us via satellite. Ann, a 365-year suspension. What's your legal and ethical take? Ann Mwangi via satellite, thank you. Legally, the Federation's rules allow for severe sanctions, including lifetime bans for registration fraud. Ethically, it's a spectacle. The number is symbolic. It signifies a ban for every day of the year, emphasizing its permanence. However, it risks overshadowing the systemic issues. How did two identities get registered? Which officials failed in their verification duties? The focus is entirely on punishing the players, who are undoubtedly guilty, but not on fixing the broken gatekeeping system that allowed this to happen. A simple, permanent ban would have achieved the same practical result without the media circus. Host, a media circus, you say? But could the Federation argue that the sheer scale of the punishment is necessary to shock the system into compliance? And M1G, perhaps, but shock value fades. Robust, transparent systems endure. We need biometric registration linked to the national database, a single, immutable player ID. That's a solution. This suspension is just a very loud symptom of a very quiet disease. Host and M1G, thank you. So we have a disease of systems. This case is fundamentally about identity. Who are you? In Kenya, that question is layered with ethnicity, documentation, and opportunity. According to the latest demographic data, Kenya is a multi-ethnic state with a population last officially counted at 47,558,296 in the 2019 census. Previous censuses, like in 2009, were controversial over questions of ethnic affiliation. Identity documents are the keys to the kingdom, for voting, for banking, and for playing football. The alleged scheme here suggests a frightening ease with which these keys can be duplicated. This isn't just a sports story, it's a national identity story. Let's visualize the scale. The population of Kenya is 47.5 million people. Two players have been suspended for a period that, if served consecutively, would mean they'd be banned until the year 2391. That's a time span longer than Kenya has been an independent nation. To put that in perspective, let's look at a comparison. This brings us to a parallel, yet darker, story of identity and exploitation. Last week, a man named Festus Arasa Amwamba was charged in court. The allegation? That he was part of a syndicate luring young Kenyan men to fight for Russia in its war against Ukraine. The prosecution says between 2024 and 2025, in the Athi River area, Amwamba and others recruited under the guise of foreign jobs, only to traffic these men into a war zone. He has denied human trafficking charges. His bail ruling is set for this Friday. While the football case is about duplicating identity for personal gain, this case is about erasing identity for geopolitical gain. Both stories ask, what is the value of a Kenyan life or a Kenyan identity in a globalized, often exploitative world? One player seeks two salaries, another man allegedly sends youths to their possible death for a fee. The connecting thread is the vulnerability created by economic desperation and weak systemic safeguards. And then there's the court of public opinion, which operates on a different timeline altogether. Consider the recent viral videos involving a foreign national, dubbed the Russian guy, and young Kenyan women. These videos, debated endlessly online, raise questions about dignity and consent. But as educationist Professor Rebecca Wambio points out, the deeper issue is what she calls camera culture. Parents raising children in an environment where every moment is potentially for public consumption. This culture, she argues, teaches children that their value is tied to visibility and virality, not integrity. Now, relate that to our footballers. Were they, in a twisted way, playing to a different camera? Trying to maximize their visibility and value in a system they perceived as a game? The desire to be seen, to be registered, to be paid, can override ethical boundaries, especially when the alternative is obscurity and struggle. But let's talk about justice and its speed. Our final comparative case comes from our neighbor, Somalia. In November of last year, a 34-year-old woman named Hadan Mohammed Dira was executed. She was convicted of murdering her 14-year-old great-niece. The timeline was breathtakingly fast. The child died, Dira was arrested, tried, and executed within days. International observers called it a rushed execution, raising serious questions about the fairness of her trial and the absence of a thorough investigation. She maintained her innocence until the end. Now, contrast that with our 365-year football suspension. One is a literal termination of life in a matter of days with potentially flawed process. The other is a symbolic termination of a career, stretched across centuries, following a committee process. Both represent extreme poles of punishment. One is criticized for being too fast, the other perhaps for being theatrically, unnecessarily long. Both stories force us to examine what we consider proportional, fair, and just in our judicial and disciplinary systems. Returning to the football case, let's consider the financial dimension. What was the monetary gain for the players? While exact figures aren't public, we can estimate. An average salary for a mid-tier Kenyan Premier League player can range from 30,000 to 100,000 shillings per month. For lower-tier clubs like those involved, let's assume a conservative 25,000 shillings per month per registration. Double that, and you have 50,000 shillings monthly. Over a hypothetical 2-year period of this fraud, that's 1.2 million shillings. A significant sum, but not astronomical. The fines involved in such cases can be up to 300,000 shillings. So the potential gain was in the millions of shillings. The fine is 300,000 shillings, but the punishment is measured in centuries. The disconnect is stark. Let's visualize the potential financial scale of the fraud versus the standard fine. This brings us back to the debate. Perspective 2 comes from former footballer and now coach Jabali Okoth. Coach Okoth, you've seen the inside of these clubs. Is this punishment justified or is it scapegoating? Coach Okoth via phone, it is harsh but necessary shock therapy. Young players see this and they will think twice, 3 times. The problem has been festering. Small punishments are ignored. This is a message, cheat and your football life is over. Forever, it protects the honest players. However, I agree with the lawyer. The clubs, the registrars, they must also be punished. They accepted the documents. Were they incompetent or complicit? That investigation must come next. You cannot only punish the rat when the hole in the wall remains open. Host, so, the punishment is a message, but the system remains unaddressed. Coach Okoth, correct. The Federation must now show it is serious about cleaning the entire house, not just throwing out 2 dirty spoons. Host, thank you, Coach. So, we have a consensus emerging. The player's guilt is clear. The punishment's severity is debatable, but its symbolic power is undeniable. Yet the glaring hole in this story is accountability upstream. Which officials at Nairobi FC and Santos Hotspurs processed these registrations? What checks did they perform? The Football Kenya Federation's next move will be critical. Will they sanction the clubs? Will they invest in the biometric, centralized system that experts like NM1G advocate for? Or will the 365-year suspension stand as a monumental, yet isolated, monument to deterrence? In a broader sense, this case holds up a mirror to Kenya. It reflects our struggles with bureaucratic integrity, the commodification of identity, and our search for justice in systems that can sometimes be as performative as they are procedural. From the football pitch to the courtroom in Athi River, to the execution grounds in Galkio, to the viral videos on our phones, we are constantly negotiating the lines between right and wrong, justice and excess, dignity and exploitation. The two players, whose careers are now officially over, serve as a stark lesson. But the real test is whether the institutions meant to govern us, in sports, in law, in child protection, learn a lesson too. The solution isn't just in longer sentences, but in smarter systems. It's in ensuring that one identity is enough for a lifetime of opportunity, so no one feels the need to invent another. It's in creating an economy where a young man doesn't feel his best option is two football salaries or a dubious job offer abroad. And it's in fostering a culture, offline and online, where value isn't measured in clicks, registrations, or sensational punishments, but in inherent human dignity. That's our report for this evening. What do you think? Was the 365-year suspension justified or an overreach? Let us know in the comments below. For Kenya News Update Today, I'm your host. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Kenya News Update Today.